All right, hey guys, welcome to a no news source gaming feature. It's Spazzy and Wolfman, and I
Hello.
say hi, Wolfman.
Hey, everyone.
And so we don't have an official name for this series, but maybe we will by the time this video is produced. But we just wanted a place where we could talk about different video game adaptations, video games that have been turned into movies, TV shows, maybe even comics or manga if somebody really wants to get into that. But I think primarily we're going to start with video game movies.
And we can also, we're going to mostly do adaptations, but over time we'll probably look at other stuff that's, inspired by video games or documentaries about video games. It won't just be adaptations. It's more about video games and kind of the broader culture.
Yeah, video games and media. In fact, maybe that's what we'll call it. Video games and media. Yeah, because if you're not going to cover the King of Kong, then why do you even have a series like this, right?
Exactly.
So we're going to start this with definitely not the granddaddy of them all, but I think kind of
actually,
kind of like the shining example of an adaptation, a very high budget, well known video game adaptation made by people who really just don't get it.
Yeah, this is not just like the first video game movie based on adapted from a video game. It's also the one that basically kind of set the template for better and mostly for worse.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting case study, I think. So and this is a movie that I hadn't seen since I was, I guess, I don't know, whenever it came out. I was 10. Around
this
there.
is
yeah.
This is about the fourth time I've seen this.
I may have seen it. I saw it in the theaters. I remember that, and I may have seen it again, like on VHS or something, once or twice. But I have not seen this in my adult life. And we, of course, are talking about the Super Mario Brothers movie. That ain't no game. This ain't no game. That was
yes. That's. I was gonna mention this after we kind of went into the plot, but I think we should kind of get this out of the way. So, as you mentioned, the tagline is "This ain't no game." The very beginning of the film has this kind of butt synth remix of the Mario theme, and there's a joke about Luigi being good at video games and how all these time I played video games now pays off.
Right, and then when they're doing this flashback to the, I guess the Cretaceous before the before the meteor hit, they try to make it look, I guess, video gamey, but in no way like a Nintendo game, like a cutscene from an educational DOS game of the time or something. It was really weird.
Yeah,
it was a weird choice.
Yeah, this was in this era where every video game movie had to have the line "game over" or have just mention some huge very obvious meta nod to it being adapted from a game.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Just saying, the better video game movies don't actually do this.
Yeah, because you don't have to, it's not like every comic book movie you watch has a transition from page panel to page panel, and has somebody reading a comic, and it's thought balloons. So some of them do, and now when they do it, it's kind of a fun meta thing. But yet,
I would totally love though if more comic book movies actually did have Biff, Bam, and Pow.
Yeah, but I think now, because it's become such a standard sort of genre, that getting into more of the meta-ness and the comic bookness of it with something like Spider-Verse works. But when you're trying to kind of legitimize it as a movie based off of a video game, don't lean into the game, don't lean into it being a game in a way that doesn't make it feel like a game. It makes it feel like this is what your parents think video games are.
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to go into the plot right now.
Let's do, I think, real quick. Let's do just our general impressions after having seen it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So, like I said, this was my first time seeing this movie in decades. And my thoughts are twofold. I remember seeing this as a kid and thinking, the first time I watched it, this has nothing to do with Mario Brothers. This is really bad. And then I remember, after digesting it a little bit, being well, it's kind of a fun, different, weird movie, but it's not about Mario. But now, after having seen it again, No, man, it's just a bad movie. It has some neat concepts in it, and I like how they just put all of this budget into this. Like this thing got greenlit, but it's such a mismatch.
Yeah.
Like it's
Oh,
just,
yeah.
like, different ideas and things that don't really work together, and the plot, even for like a kids movie, like everything kind of falls apart if you think about it even a little bit. But I mean, I guess
yeah, we're gonna.
I guess if you're a kid and you're not worried about it being Mario, it's at least fun. So it's got that going for it. But I don't know. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna want to kind of dive into this a little more when we actually go into some of the stuff in this movie. But, for me, the biggest thing is that this is kind of from like a whole other era. Like this kind of movie would never ever ever get made today. Like it would have to go through like 8 lines of Nintendo executives and 9 lines of like American like film executives, and it would have to make sure that every single part of it was, kind of made perfect for the brand or for the fans. Like this is a bizarre movie that has next to nothing to do with Mario, and it's not good.
Yeah, it's
at all,
weird because
and
it doesn't feel like it's made by committee, but it's also not like this auteur kind of like vision.
Oh,
it's just like a...
I mean, this thing, it's actually both. We'll get into the actual construction behind this movie, but it actually kind of is simultaneously an auteurist film and something that was made by committee.
It's so bizarre.
The making of this film is absolutely nuts. And I'm a lot more charitable to it than maybe it deserves, but it's got chutzpah that, like, I don't know, something like the Tekken movie does not have.
Yeah, it's weird. It definitely has, like, a soul. It definitely has an identity. It's just a weird one.
To explain why, so this movie came out in 19... Oh.
I was gonna say, let's get into it.
Yeah, okay. So this film, Super Mario Brothers, 1993, this is, to my understanding, the very first movie based on a video game. Its directors were Annabelle Jankin and Rocky Morton. They were the couple behind, they were, some indie things, but most famously Max Headroom.
Yes.
The inescapable, weird, like, TV, I guess, pundit caricature made out of CGI. I don't even know how to really describe Max Headroom at all, other than that...
Just Google it, kids. He was
yes.
a thing. Like...
Other than that, the bad guy in this movie has his haircut.
Yeah. Let's just get into Koopa for a minute. Let's just straight dive into Koopa. What is Koopa's deal? Because the whole thing is he's a germaphobe, but it's not really paid off in any way. And then he covers his hands in wax because I guess that's a way to get rid of germs. Although I'm unaware of it. That's a really weird introduction scene.
Yeah, no. Basically, the bad guy is Bowser / Koopa, who's played by you love him, Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper in one of his most phoned-in performances.
Yes, just so we're clear, this is 7 years after Blue Velvet. This is the same year as True Romance, and for all of you very bad movie fans out there, 3 years before Space Truckers.
Ooh, here's the thing. So, it's my understanding that the Dinohattan, I guess, is part of the dinosaur kingdom. Little unclear on that. There is no mushroom kingdom. But it is a monarchy.
Well, he calls it the Mushroom Kingdom.
It is a monarchy because there was the former king. And it seemed like there was some sort of coup in which Bowser took over and turned him into a fungus. That's some spoilers right there, kids.
The one person who's listening in on this podcast and doesn't know anything about this movie is so confused.
Yeah. So, but then why are there all of these signs everywhere for elect Koopa? Like, why does he need a campaign if he's a dictator? I don't understand. Like, it's not even like love Koopa. It's like elect Koopa. Like, they were all like campaign ads.
The reason is that this film essentially takes place in this kind of like unfettered capitalist nightmare. Koopa isn't he's only called King Koopa, he's actually the President Koopa, and he just rigs the election every time. Like, that's the whole thing, is that he's supposed to be...
Right, that would have been...
That
would have been nice if it was explained in the movie.
Well, that's kind of the problem, is that, like, in one of the parts of this movie, or one of the versions of this movie that exists, it's meant to be this kind of environmentalist anti-cap story where Koopa is kind of this like exploitative, like sort of basically he's just like like an evil factory boss, and the rest of the world is just this one crappy like dystopia. And the problem is that's one third of it, and then the other 2/3 of it aren't that story.
Like, it doesn't...
So that's the parts where he's like a weird germaphobe.
Yeah, and like I said, he like orders a pizza, and that never pays off. Like, there's like this running gag about a pizza, like, hold the mammal, which is weird because it seems like there shouldn't be any mammals there. Because before, they said when the meteor split... And by the way, the fact that we haven't described the plot yet, and I'm getting into these, is probably confusing for some people.
Yeah.
But it's just weird. Like, I thought all the mammals were stuck in our timeline. Why are there mammals on his pizza? And why am I thinking so deeply into this? And also, I get that they call him a king, but there actually was a king before him, and it's really heavily inferred that the king was deposed by him.
By the new king, who... those elect Koopa signs are probably some of the smarter parts of the movie. One of them says, Koopa the environmentalist, and then has a little tagline that says, "Don't worry, we'll get more."
This was all done much better by ABC's Jim Henson sitcom, Dinosaurs.
Yes. Well, basically, yeah. Also, Jim Henson Company probably would have been a better fit for Mario, but...
Yeah, and here's another thing about Koopa. Well, Koopa, what was with that scene where they throw him into the... Okay, so guys, so there's this machine, and I swear, after this we'll get back to the plot, and things will make sense. But so there's a machine that's an evolution-de-evolution machine. But then there's also guns that do it, so I don't know why they go through the hassle of the machine in one scene, and then they have a gun at the end. Except
because it's scarier when you're strapped to a giant chair and you're sort of like pushed upwards so that you're put into like one of those hairdresser machines.
like a salon hood. Yeah, it was weird. And then the other thing is, at the end, the guns that de-evolve people are super scopes, so I guess that's neat.
Yes.
But
that certainly is a reference.
That certainly is something that people that play video games will recognize. So anyways, the machine evolves, like, it can basically turn you back into whatever you evolved from, and everybody in Dinohattan evolves from dinosaurs. Although, well, we'll get into that in a minute. But they throw Koopa into the machine and set it on Jurassic for like half a second. And then like all that equates to is him having a lizard tongue in one scene and his eyes changing in that scene. That literally has no effect on anything at all in the movie, and why does it exist? Why was that written into the script?
Yeah. I have a lot of questions about the de-evolution, about the science behind all this, but I'm just going to quickly go onto the plot.
Okay, we'll get back. We'll get back to the entire science behind this, because I have questions. There's some things that just don't make sense. Anyways,
I don't have a background in
paleobiology,
dinosaur
or
evolution.
Yeah, that's.
So as the narrator says at the beginning of the film, played by Dan Castellaneta from The Simpsons, whose name is also misspelled in the credits.
This is sort of quality we expect from the Super Mario Brothers film.
Basically, the idea is that the meteor that rammed into the Earth and killed all the dinosaurs did not just kill all the dinosaurs, but it created a parallel universe where all the dinosaurs that didn't die went into. And so on our Earth, human beings evolved from primates. But in Dinohattan, which is part of the former Mushroom Kingdom, which is basically just like a planet that's essentially just any desert planet from your Star Wars or Mass Effect story, evolved from dinosaurs, except that some of them also evolved from fungi.
No, I think what they're saying is that all life evolved from fungi, which is not true. Because because when you go back far enough, because I think that's what it is. Like, because I think there were settings on there, and like there was a setting that I think it had different periods, and I think one might have even just said fungi and then primordial.
But that's not how evolution works.
It's not how evolution works.
We didn't.
Also, I don't understand why evolved dinosaurs would look like people. Like, why would they have?
I'm okay with that.
Why would they have hair? They're reptiles. They would have feathers, if anything, or filaments that are like hair, but you wouldn't just be like a human. And then, like, the only reptilian trait they have is that they lay eggs. And that leads me to ask the awkward question of, when Daisy, who grew up in our world, ovulates, does she just lay an egg?
Yes.
Does that just happen and it's like, whatever. Yeah. Seems normal. Nobody ever talked to me about
maybe
it.
That's from... Yep, maybe that's from the extended cut. So these two worlds never interact except for the times they do. And one of the times they do is that the former queen of the Mushroom Kingdom that's been deposed by President/King Koopa, she brings her daughter, played by Samantha Mathis, into our world, which is conveniently Brooklyn.
Right, Brooklyn is on top of Dinohattan in their world. It's
sort
like
of
parallel dimensions.
Yeah, it's like parallel dimensions, but it is also underground. So it's kind of like a cross, one of those like quilt patterns. Like it's on the side and it's also on top of it.
Yeah, it's a weird movie, guys. And here's let me just bring up another nitpick while we're going over this part of the plot. So they never like interact with us, but their culture seems very similar to ours, and they understand. They live in Dinohattan for God's sake.
Yes.
They wear similar clothes. They speak English, I assume. They have pizzas. They have a Statue of Liberty. Which just raises all sorts of weird questions that Dinohattan has a Statue of Liberty. So I don't believe that, and they seem to understand everything about like what us monkeys and primates or mammals do.
And they understand, apparently they all understand, like not just the entire, how like every single bit of evolution works, but they also are all intimately familiar with the fact that they are the cast-offs of an interdimensional meteor.
Right, and that's like common knowledge too. That's like, because remember when this happened 65 million years ago, they weren't people. They were just animals. They were dinosaurs. So I don't understand, like, it's like super common knowledge amongst all of the dinosaur people, all the people, all the citizens of Dinohattan, that this is which once again are just people. They just look like people. Except some of them have like scales on their face occasionally because it looks cool, because it's got kind of like this weird cyberpunk aesthetic. I like the way Dinohattan looks. I'm not gonna knock on that.
I do too. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I'll let you keep going. I can't stop every 5 minutes. I have a problem with this, or we will never finish.
Oh yeah, no, we'll probably never finish anyway. But so meanwhile, in Manhattan are the two lovable brothers, the Mario brothers, who later, when they get arrested by the cops, turn out that their actual names are Mario, and Luigi Mario.
Which is one of my favorite gags, actually. I enjoy that, and I still think that's their names. Anyways.
I do think that should be considered their surnames. It's significantly more enjoyable than almost everything else in the movie.
Yes. It's a much better name reveal than no family, eh? We'll call you Solo.
Jesus.
Sorry.
That dude should not exist before he walks in the bar in Star Wars 1.
Yeah.
But we're not.
It's fine. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Anyways.
No, it's fine. Now we're complaining about Solo podcast. It's done. So, Mario he's got all kinds of personality, like being Italian, and being kind of annoyed, and not really wanting to deal with all this convoluted stuff because he's a regular working class Joe. While Luigi he's an important character because he's a dreamer. I
he's
think.
John Leguizamo. That's the other thing that makes him important.
Yes. Yes, the Mario brothers, played by Bob Hoskins, one of our greatest actors ever, and John Leguizamo, one of America's national treasures.
Also, people that when I look at them, I say, yeah, they look like they're related. Yeah, they're totally brothers.
That's the weird thing, is that basically the way this script, both the script is written and the casting works, is that Mario comes off more as his uncle
Yeah.
than like his older brother.
Yeah, but they had to be brothers because of the video game. But he even says in the movie that Mario is the closest I've had to like parents because Mario raised them after their parents died in some way that's I assume is related to a giant monkey attack and stealing their mom. That's all I'm.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
The Donkey Kong incident. We don't talk about it.
yeah. Uh, if nothing else, I do want to make one note that I do actually like the fact that they are really just plumbers. They even have like a gun rack, but it's just for toilet plungers in their apartment. Like I do actually like the fact that the film does set fairly normal people in like a cartoonishly over-the-top world.
And I love that not only that, but their actual plumbing abilities keep coming in handy, and it's hilarious.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's like the part in Fury Road where the bolt cutters keep being used.
Yeah, it's just like yeah, I get it. Way to go, Mario! You're just doing all sorts of stuff, doing plumber stuff. But yeah, anyway, so continue. So they are plumbers.
Yeah, they're plumbers, but they're kind of down on their luck because there's a larger plumbing company that's sort of implied to have mob ties that keep stealing all their jobs. And then, by a chance account, they meet. Luigi meets this. He meets Cute with this girl named Daisy, who, it turns out to be the princess of the parallel dimension Dinohattan. She gets kidnapped by Iggy and Spike, played by Richard Edson and Fisher Stevens,
who are your typical like kids like bumbling kids movie bumbling lackeys, like
Joe Pesci and Home Alone levels of.
Yeah, they're bad. They are terrible additions to this movie.
So they I should note, did not actually wrote all their dialogue, because by that point in the filming, none of the writers or directors cared at all. So they just let them do their own dialogue. Eventually, they turn good. When they keep failing, King Koopa sends them into that tanning hood and basically evolves them.
But it
more.
doesn't change how they look. Everything else changes how they look. But you don't evolve apparently beyond looking like just a regular dude.
Yeah. So. And then immediately they start basically becoming like anti-Cap heroes who try to team up with the Mario Brothers.
The hilarious part is they're still bumbling and really incompetent.
Idiots.
Yeah, they're really bad. They just use larger words and change their moral outlook. But like they're literally the same characters. They're like, indubitably, I'm falling. It's like, it's art. It's cinema. It's film.
It is. But before we get to a scene in which the actual main bad guy of Nintendo is referred to as like an oppressor of the proletariat, and that's an actual line in the film.
Can we also say, and this is another thing that goes back, so the first scene where we see Spike and Iggy, they go, and they're relatives of Bowser, apparently. That's another thing that they touch on later.
Cousins.
Yeah, cousins. When you see them, they go, and this is one of those stupid little things that bothers me, and they buy 2 hot dogs, and they say it's made out of dog, so apparently they know what a dog is. And they throw out the buns and just eat the actual sausage, the hot dog part.
Yeah.
I guess
because they're carnivores.
They're dinosaurs. They evolved from some sort of carnivorous animal. They're not going to eat buns that are made of flour or bread or whatever. But then later, when we go to Dinohattan, we see a hot dog bun that's it's clearly just a regular hot dog bun, and they put 3 lizards on it because, like, weird, they're eating lizards. But that's not the point. My point is that they eat that lizard dog with the bun. So why are they throwing the other? Maybe, I guess, maybe I'm looking too hard into it. Maybe those 2 dudes just don't like hot dog buns.
Maybe they don't want to get too much carb.
Exactly, maybe they're cutting carbs. I don't know. I just thought that was weird and worth mentioning. Okay.
It is. It's weird and worth mentioning.
And I want to talk about how they're called Spike and Iggy, but let's do, when we're done here, let's talk about like all of the video game illusions and why they're weird.
Oh, of course. And so what happens is that Spike and Iggy kidnap Daisy after kidnapping Mario's girlfriend Danielle,
who is not Pauline and should have been named Pauline because she's Pauline, man.
It could have also been partially due to the fact that around that time, Pauline, like her name being Pauline, may have not been super common knowledge. She was also just Lady in the first
Yeah, it's
game.
true.
Anyway, they basically take her underground in the part of Manhattan that is an archaeological dig site.
Oh.
And they walk through it, and when they come out of this cave, they're in a giant. We're not actually sure if it's underground. It's just always dark because it's cyberpunk, but it's this kind of underground cyberpunk decadent like urban sprawl where everyone is wearing like fetish gear or Mad Max-esque like giant huge like poofy leather jackets with the giant like pauldrons on them.
Yeah,
It's filled with.
There's later a scene in like a nightclub where like some of the clothes and stuff, it's surprisingly sexualized for a Mario Brothers movie from 1993.
I mean, there's a scene where they look around and there's a porn theater that's showing I Was a Teenage Mammal Triple X.
Yes. And that's another thing. Just I guess this goes into the video game mods, but there's all these neon signs that are very kind of like Blade Runner light, I guess you could say.
Yeah, like a strip club called the Bullet Bills.
Yeah, exactly. And then everything is based off of different Mario enemies. I can't remember them right now. I remember Bullet
There's
Bills.
that one. There's one called Thwomp. Those are for the jump shoes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, to explain why Mario can jump high, he gets jump boots.
Yeah, but then he doesn't actually use them except for in that one scene, which is weird. And see, that's like I think we've talked about this before. That's just kind of the flawed thinking that went into this movie. Of well, in the video game he jumps high, so how are we gonna do that? What if we give him like crazy like hydraulic boots that let him jump high? And that's not needed. Either you're the type of movie where a man can jump very high and you do it, or you're a grounded and realistic movie and you don't worry about it. You don't like try to have your cake and eat it too. Like you just have to understand what type of movie you are and go for it.
Yeah. I kind of like the jump boots, but I think that people would probably have a lot less of a problem with them if every single use they had didn't feel unbelievably forced and frustrating.
Yeah, and then later, there's a part where Mario has to save his girlfriend, which you'll get to. But then, like, he's on top of, like, quote-unquote Goomba, which we'll also get into. And then he doesn't, like, they have him, like, swing and, like, Tarzan into him. And I'm like, have him jump on his head. He's literally on the roof. There's a Goomba below him. Have him jump on his head. Why isn't he jumping on his head? That's the one thing Mario does.
Yeah.
It was right there.
Yeah. So in this world of Dinohattan, that / a Mushroom Kingdom, I'm not sure if it's ever officially called the Mushroom Kingdom, but there's a part where the bad guy tells the deposed king, who was Lance Henriksen and is now Fungus, I've taken over your little Mushroom Kingdom. Or something like that. He's the bad guy. He is an oppressive ruler who basically controls what little resources they have with an iron fist, and seeks and openly wants to invade what is either called the surface world or the other dimension, because I guess they couldn't figure out which.
Right, yeah, because I guess there's probably, because like you said, there were 4 different scripts that became this one script, and they don't fit together, so there was probably one where the meteor ended up forcing the dinosaurs underground, and they were trapped underground. And then there's probably a different version where which I think is more prevalent in this movie, where it created a dimensional rift, and now they are in an other dimension.
Yeah, and when we say he rules with an iron fist, what we mean to say is that one of the weirder roles, like casting choices in this film, is that they cast psychobilly musician Mojo Nixon as Toad, who is basically an environmentalist hippie singer who gets arrested by the cops for making anti-Koopa songs, strapped into a chair, and then de-evolved into a Goomba.
Because when you think about Toad, you think about radical environmentalist, musician, and Goomba. So I don't see the problem. Those are the 3 things I associate with Toad.
Toad would be way more fun if he was a psychobilly hippie. Anyway, so in this film, Goombas are like 7-foot tall giant monsters with little tiny heads, and who have been de-evolved
But
because
only
I
their
guess the
heads have been
actual
de-evolved. That's why they put their heads in
Yeah.
the thing. Because you don't evolve the rest of the body, you're just evolving the head. So, but then the rest of their body becomes giant anyways, so I don't understand that.
Yeah, he turns out to be the good Goomba because he still remembers being Toad, and they give him a harmonica that they attach to the front of his face that he can kind of play on it, and at the end he helps make songs to make the other Goombas turn good, and that's
And here's
cool,
another
I
thing
guess.
with the science of it. So we all evolve from one common ancestor. That's how evolution works. So even if dinosaurs evolved into humans for some weird reason that doesn't make any sense to me, I would have assumed that it would have been one type of dinosaur. Like one common ancestor, but all the Goombas have different
But
heads.
it's not. Yeah, all the Koopas have different heads, and yeah, it's really weird. It kind of actually looks more like one of those Japanese shows in the 70s that would basically do like yokai or monsters, but they wouldn't actually, because they couldn't have the budget to actually make like full-bodied monsters. They'd give people like a hat, so you'd know that they're an octopus person because they have like an octopus hat on them.
I'll say this, I actually really like the design of the Goombas because they're weird. Like in another movie that wasn't called Mario and you were turning people into monsters via this fashion, that's cool. I like it. I dig it. It's interesting.
It is a very good design for a monster that's supposed to oscillate between being very like uncomfortable and kind of goofy and silly.
Yeah, exactly. It's because they're they're like the peons, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's like getting caught in the wrong elevator with someone.
Yes, like
which is actually literally a plot point. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was just getting my thoughts out on those. Continue.
Yeah. Of course. So, the reason why Koopa needs to get the princess is both because of her and because of a magical small rock that can open the rift. And Mario, and what he doesn't realize is that Luigi has the rock. So, the Mario brothers get arrested for being plumbers. That's actually the reason why they're arrested.
Although
and eventually they have...
I think within the context of the movie, it's because Bowser probably put like a
anti-plumber.
Yeah, he probably put like a what's the word, like a you're just saying like, hey, we need to arrest any plumbers because these particular plumbers are holding the rock. So I don't think it's just because they were plumbers. I think that he wanted to arrest particular plumbers, and so all plumbers fell into that, I think.
Yeah. So. Of course. Yeah. So they, after they go to prison and basically get tortured, they get, like, drowned with, Gatorade. They get a giant, like, they get, like, sort of gas shot down their pants. They, an actual gas, not gasoline. And they get their mugshot consists of them being handcuffed and then having a gun trained on their forehead. And eventually they break out and get free and eventually take the fight back to Koopa, where unfortunately they open the gateway sort of, and the head of the plumbing company that keeps fucking over Mario. Sorry, we can cut that in.
Keep screwing over Mario.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. And so Koopa de-evolves him into an ape using the Super Scope, and then he and Mario fight, and then after they shift back into Brooklyn, they shift back again into the Mushroom Kingdom, where Bowser ends up getting blown up by a Bomb who has a Reebok logo.
The Reebok logo is one of my favorite parts. I had forgotten about that, and that's like my favorite type of product placement. One that where you can tell that they think they're being super clever, but it's so ridiculously in your face. I also enjoy the fact that Mario's rival, who you never really see, the mobster until the very end, gets turned into a monkey or into a chimpanzee. Sorry, that's also pretty great.
Yes.
And then at the end, there's the promise of a sequel, where Daisy comes in. She's all like, I can't explain to you what's happening, but you need to come with me right now, because we're going to the sequel. And then there was no sequel.
Yeah.
Like,
I really
want to
know
scene in today's society.
in today's society, they would have also known what the sequel would be. Like, I'm assuming they just wanted a sequel hook, and we're just like, what? Well, I don't know. We'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
We should I also want to point out that the composer of this movie is Alan Silvestri, which is he's the Avengers guy. He's the guy who composes the music for the Avengers films, for all of Robert Zemeckis' films, and for future.
Yeah. The music in the movie wasn't bad. I don't remember. Like, it seemed pretty decent. It didn't seem that. There wasn't anything that seemed that memorable to me. But I mean, hey, did a good job.
Yeah. The music, like everything else, is really out of place because, okay, I feel like we got to get into actually like the meat and potatoes of how this film was made, because as incomprehensible as all of these like past however many minutes we've been talking about this are, we really do need to actually like kind of hammer home what was the deal with this movie.
Yes.
So, are you familiar with its production?
I'm really not. I don't know really anything about the backstage stuff of this movie, so I'm a little fascinated to find out, to be honest with you.
Okay. So basically, this film went through a number of a very large number of revisions in multiple scripts, all of which kind of got like shelved and replaced by another script, which then got shelved and replaced by another script. But then they'd try to keep some of the stuff from the old scripts in, even during production. So this was produced by a guy named Roland Joff. He's a producer and director, and he really hated the idea of doing like a kid-friendly film. He wanted a movie. He basically wanted to do Batman '89 for video games.
I mean, there's definitely elements of that in here.
Yes, there are, and this is why they went through a few directors that they had kind of like dropped or who didn't want to do it. So they eventually got Annabelle Jenkin and Rocky Morton, the Max Headroom people, and they, their version of sci-fi was really weird. It was kind of innovative, and it was very edgy and bizarre, and he found that really compelling. The thing is, though, is that as it turns out, the film that they decided to make, which was the script that they were using, was like that kind of fetish-clad, like weird biker cyberpunk aesthetic, isn't actually that something that you really want if you're an executive who just wants to sell a lot of toys.
Right, exactly. That was part of the problem with Batman too, was that they wanted to sell toys to kids, and you can't really do that with this sort of movie. Also, I would argue that a Mario Brothers movie doesn't need to be a deeply sci-fi movie. It would be more fantasy than anything, really. I don't know, it's weird.
For me, like, I don't think the aesthetic works with Mario, but I think it could have worked for just a movie if you were willing to basically internally divorce the rest of the stuff from the Mario stuff. Like, I think that could have potentially worked. I don't necessarily think it would have worked, but doing it with Mario makes it even more bizarre. Weirder.
Like, it just seems like an odd marriage, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think we're both, a lot of the positivity we have towards that idea comes from the fact that we both really like the Dinohattan set.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of imagination in there, and you could see how if you divorce this from Mario and just tried to make a different movie, and you'd have to retool a lot about the movie. And I think it would have to be, like, PG-13. And a little bit different, maybe a little more Fifth Element like in some ways.
This kind of actually is the Fifth Element.
Yeah, right. Like, but
so yeah.
Go
on. So basically, the distributors basically, they wanted a Mario movie. They wanted something that was kind of kid friendly and could be easily like sellable and all of that, and and a lot of the people on set kind of just wanted to do more like a family-friendly film. So what happened is that the distributors basically decided that they weren't going to necessarily scrap the script that they had, but they got it rewritten by Ed Solomon from Bill and Ted. But he rewrote this after the directors had already storyboarded it.
Oh, that sounds not good.
So basically, the directors were constantly replacing material, and then the producers were kind of forcing them to replace other material. They were actually cut from their own film during the last few weeks of shooting, and this kind of led to this very acrimonious, like, tension on this very extreme tension on set, where basically the directors kind of wanted to do their movie, and kind of wanted to be left alone doing it, and a lot of the people kind of didn't really want to do that kind of movie, and a lot of the other people weren't necessarily opposed to it, but they were getting frustrated because the constant reshoots meant that the directors were kind of trying to take a lot of control over the film, and so basically everyone kind of hated each other. Everyone hated the directors, and the directors were kind of like partially doing stuff that wasn't super great, but were also kind of being kind of bound by the rules of how this was being made.
Uh,
And yeah.
I feel like a documentary about this would be fascinating. Why somebody needs to get on that.
Oh yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I don't necessarily feel like every bad movie needs its own documentary, but this one really is fascinating. Hoskins considered this the worst, his biggest Hoskins considered this film as his personal biggest regret as an actor.
And you know what? He was fine in the role, though, is the thing.
Yeah, Mario doesn't have any really interesting characteristics in the film, but that's not
His
really
fault.
on Hoskins.
Yeah, he sold me on that. He could be a dude from Brooklyn named Mario who was a plumber.
Yeah. So he and Leguizamo would constantly get drunk, like they'd chug whiskey on and off set, to the point where that actually may have been so Leguizamo may accidentally broke Hoskins' finger during a shoot in the Mario van chase.
Yeah, I heard that.
That's probably because of that. And frequently offset, a lot of the cast would just kind of enjoy smoking weed together.
I mean, I would too if I was filming the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah. Hopper was actually probably the worst at it. He at one point during one of the scenes in Koopa's office or bedroom, he spent 3 hours on the actual set shouting at the directors in front of the rest of the cast and crew, because they rewrote his lines at the last minute.
I mean, it really does feel like like I said before, like this mishmash of different ideas thrown together, and you can tell that things fall apart the more you look at it. I enjoy Dinohattan. I enjoy the fact that the Marios are plumbers. For the most part, I have no problem with any of the performances, really.
Sort of.
Koopa's pretty bad. Little.
Hopper was one of our best actors at just being super, super intense,
yes.
Which comes across a lot worse now after I mentioned that last anecdote.
Yes.
But it really does need to be said that this was the same year as True Romance. This was 7 years after Blue Velvet. And it's very weird that, someone who played, such an intensely uncomfortable and scary character as Frank Booth, in this role, it's so weird. But he's also not really given anything.
The fact that they introduce him with the wax scene is so weird. Because even and then there's a part of the movie where he calls to have Daisy cleaned, and you're all like, is he trying to have sex with Princess Daisy? But I don't know if he is. It just seems like such a weird character turn for him, because I don't even know what most of his motivation is.
Yeah. Yeah, his motivation is basically just accumulating wealth and power. Also during the shoot, a couple other fun pieces of news from this story. Some of the other actors who were considered for starring in the movie. Danny DeVito and Bruno Kirby for Mario. Tom Hanks for Luigi.
Who for Luigi?
And John Leguizamo.
Okay.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger and Michael Keaton for Koopa. Oh, and Kevin Costner.
Huh. That would have been a thing. I like how they make him turn into a dinosaur for a split second, I guess, as to say that, hey, we know he's a weird dragon thing. Look, now he's a dinosaur because in the games he's a dragon thing. Bruno Kirby would have been really weird.
Yes.
That would have been an odd choice. Like,
a lot of those choices are really odd, like Kevin Costner as King Koopa.
He would have played that very self-serious, and I would have liked it more because he's Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. I don't know. Let's talk about, I guess, about some of the Mario-isms in the movie. We've touched upon most of it, but a little weird that they used Daisy and not Peach, but not so much when you think about the time frame, because this was about the time I guess Super Mario World was the last Mario game, and that's why they leaned into the dinosaur stuff so heavy, because that took place on Dinosaur Island or Dinosaur World or whatever.
I'm gonna be honest. I have a feeling like they really weren't looking at almost anything.
No, but it was very superficial, which is why it's funny. I think this is one of the first instances of really having Daisy and Luigi be paired up in a romantic fashion. I don't think Nintendo had done that prior to this.
Well, they say they do it, but they never actually do it. So yeah.
Yeah, so that was interesting. But I think the reason is, like I said, because at the time in North America, she was Princess Toadstool, and you don't call Toadstool, like, this is a girl named Toadstool. Daisy's at least an actual name. You know, I think maybe if it was Peach, that would have been a little different. But you're not just going to do that. So that's a little weird. I love that Big Bertha was a giant red fish that eats you in Super Mario Brothers 3. And they just turned her into a large African-American woman in a red dress. That was pretty weird.
I'm going to be honest. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with a lot of the stuff revolving around Big Bertha in the movie.
Yeah, it seems weird because at one point Mario seduces her, and then he's like, "Punch me again." It was, once again, like a lot of this movie, odd, and I don't really understand where they were going with it. But it's really okay. Or like, why would you have Iggy and Spike be his lackeys? Why wouldn't it at least be two Koopalings? They just picked random names that they found.
It is random names. They chose the punkest names they could find, and that was it.
Yes, literally, that was it. Was Iggy and Spike?
Yeah. I think it was really nothing other than what would be the most cyberpunk character names we can find in this. Oh, Iggy and Spike.
Oh gosh, yeah.
What? Are you expecting Morton Koopa Jr. to just have his own demented talk show like Morton Downey Jr.?
I mean, in an ideal world, yes. That's what I would have wanted. There was like I said, the bomb. I don't know. They had the jump boots. I also thought it was weird that they didn't get their colored suits till the end. But then they
and they're not but they're not also their suits. They're just actual the Mario Brothers dress in overall, a shirt and overalls. Those aren't that. That's a weird jumpsuit.
Yeah, they're weird jumpsuits that just happen to be in the same color schemes as the games.
They had to provide a dark and edgy explanation for why they dress in overalls.
Yeah, but then they still made them more colorful and ridiculous than it would have looked if they had just been wearing overalls. I mean, we saw Captain Lou Albano. We know the overalls and red shirt works. It's a good look.
Yeah. Regarding Daisy, why they chose Daisy, I honestly don't think it really has anything to do with the games. I think that, you know how
actually, Captain Lou was red overalls and a red hat, now that I'm thinking about it. Anyways, go on.
So you know how in DuckTales, Dewey is kind of the de facto main duck? They're all important, but he's...
Are you talking about the original incarnation of DuckTales?
No, DuckTales 2017.
Okay. Got it. Continue.
Yeah, you know how they have the one character, they're the equal characters, but one is sometimes elevated slightly more, like how Mulder is treated as slightly more important than Scully in the X-Files.
Yes.
Or Dipper and Mabel in Gravity Falls. So I think a lot of it was just that they decided that Luigi was younger, and by extension, it made more sense for Luigi to be kind of the de facto main character. so he's got like he's the dreamer, I guess, and that's like his character arc is that he believes in this kind of supernatural stuff and Mario doesn't, and Luigi gets to find this like gets that proven. Like Mario doesn't really actually go on that much of a character journey, and I think they thought that basically having a person who was younger would be more
Relatable
kind
to
of
the
like
kids.
yeah, yes. But Luigi isn't really relatable at all because he doesn't really have any traits other than kind of being a bit of a dreamer.
And he's into Daisy. That's enough.
Yeah.
Those are two things.
We're-
Yes, two things.
Yeah, meanwhile, Mario's personality is that he's just kind of a dick and doesn't want to actually get involved in stuff. And
But
he likes
Mario does have the
WrestleMania.
hero moments at the end, I feel like.
He does, yeah, that is fair.
He has a show he has his own moments freeing all the captive women because there were a bunch of other women kidnapped. We're not going to get into it. You can watch this movie if you haven't already.
Sure, why
and
not?
he has the actual face down with Koopa, so he has the actual like that hero moment. They give Luigi his own thing with Daisy removing the rock or whatever it is, with that amazing effect where who's the actress? I don't even remember. I don't remember the actress or the character name. The evil lady that hangs around with Koopa.
Oh damn it! I didn't.
But yeah, like where they have her
I'll go look
immediately
for
get
it.
vaporized in the skeleton on the wall. That is one of my favorite things.
Yeah, that is a very cool thing. I think it is. It's Fiona Shaw as Lena.
Lena, speaking of 2017 DuckTales. Anyways.
The DuckTales, yep.
And we brought it back around. So yeah, I guess that's it. Like, there weren't that many, like here's the thing. Everything about this movie that was Mario was very superficial and done by people that don't really
Yes.
understand what makes Mario fun or good or appealing to people. It's just like, he's a plumber. His name's Mario. Look, Bullet Bills, Wasn't there
He
an
jumps.
actual bullet for a bullet bill too at some point?
I'm not sure. But I do know that the way they do the fireballs is that the de-evolution guns, they don't shoot like beams, they shoot basically the fireballs.
You mean the super scopes? They are totally super
Yes.
scopes. I guess, yeah. You know what? I think I've said all I'm going to say on this movie. We're closing in on an hour time here. So, what are your final thoughts here?
So much of this movie, and like we've set up like a tentative list of like the first few stuff we're gonna look at for like future movies. And one of the things I think that this does deserve a commendation for is the fact that at every moment it is utterly, utterly unique. It probably doesn't deserve to feel that way because, like I said, this is a film with so many like competing ideas, and a lot of those competing ideas are very generic and bland. But like this is just.
It doesn't feel like anything else. There's like, if this was on, I wouldn't confuse it for any other movie.
Yeah, around the time when like the Twilight like kind of reached the zenith of its popularity, and I was thinking like, because I had watched some of the Twilight films, and I felt like I really wish that they had been allowed to be a little weirder and a little crazier, but that wouldn't happen because this is an era where the original author can usually pretty quickly get like a good deal for like making sure everything stays on brand, right?
Right.
Like everything stays. Like, there's not really much of any deviation from the original stuff.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you need that in an adaptation. You need somebody to take what is the core of an idea, of just like, hey, I read this, and now I'm just writing this based off of what I remember. I'm not even referencing it because I'm just taking the ideas and the emotions, and I'm doing something else with it. I'm making my own vision because that's more interesting. Because you know what, the book or the TV show or the video game are still going to be there.
Exactly. Like, that's why for me, like, I don't really mind this movie. I don't consider it really a sacrilege. I feel like
it's an adaptation.
In all honesty, in all honesty, like, okay, some of the costumes are a bit too risque and whatever, but like, on the whole, I don't think this really feels super out of brand for Mario to find like basically a sleazy exploitative labor leader, basically like crushing down the people in this one giant city.
At the same
Like,
time, though, because we hadn't at the time, and I'll say we still haven't really gotten anything that really is a fairly faithful representation of the video games. It does kind of hurt that way because we want those too. We want things that are actually the stories that we are familiar with on the screen. Mario's kind of a weird one to do anyways. It's like, I've always said that about Dragon Ball Evolution. That is like an awful movie. But at the same time, like, how would you translate Dragon Ball to a movie and not have it come off as goofy and weird and silly? Because it is a goofy, weird, and silly thing, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
So it's a tightrope.
Yeah, the film obviously does not succeed at this.
No.
At all.
It could have.
The writing... Yeah, like, we talked about this, and we messaged each other about this last night when we were kind of watching the film. But the humor is so weird. Like you've mentioned, like, how the jokes don't work, like, the jokes don't land, and the jokes, like, contradict the other jokes and don't never really, like, they set up stuff that never pays off.
That pizza joke is the weirdest thing, because I guess the closest thing to a payoff is that at one point Koopa orders a pizza, and he's all like, yeah, I want a pterodactyl tail, hold the mammal, extra spicy, whatever, and it's supposed to be funny, I guess, because he's ordering things that we wouldn't order on a pizza. Hilarious.
Yeah.
But then, like, 2 other times in the movie, he just ran and he's like, where's my pizza? And then I guess the payoff to that joke is supposed to be that the pizza's there when he's about to kill Mario, and he's like, I don't care about the pizza anymore. But that's not actually funny.
Yeah, that's just like... Yeah, there's no... It's an punchline, because that's the thing, is that the humor is like weird like Neil Hamburger-style anti-comedy, where it's just like the cadence is all wrong, the writing is wrong, the acting is like insanely stilted. It's so weird. It's like when you watch those deliberately bad, like when people will film like deliberately bad movies to have on the background of other movies.
It's like Iggy and Spike are a great example, because they were like bumbling henchmen, like a step above like Bulk and Skull from the old 90s original Power Rangers, like really bad. But they felt so out of place, because as cheesy and weird as this movie was, they didn't have any other characters that had that tone to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. And the whole movie felt like that. It felt like things that didn't like quite fit with each other. Okay, here's another joke that's like okay, and this joke worked on 2 levels of bad. When they find out that Big Bertha, it might have been Big Bertha in the movie, stole the crystal from the Mario Brothers. Iggy and Spike, who had just become intelligent, to be like, would you say that she's very corpulent? Would you say she's corpulent? And it's funny, because now they're smart and they're saying that she's fat. And then Luigi's like, nah, she's just round. And I'm like, that's not... Yeah, it's not funny.
I do love me some, like, very lazy fat-shaming jokes while we're trying to get to the, like, actual emotional climax of your goddamn movie.
Yeah, and then on top of that, it was just like the joke's like, oh, but now they're using big words because they're smart now. Yeah. And you're like, oh, come on, guys.
There's also the part when they become good and decide to fight their capitalist overlords, where then they reveal that they've always been on the side of the Mushroom Kingdom. I
read that as them just being cowards.
No, okay, that might be. It's hard to tell because of
the writing and acting. But my read on that is they were just cowards, and now they want to be on the winning side. That's what I took from that.
Yeah. They didn't show up at the end, though, which was sad. I would have liked to see Iggy and Spike, the true heart of... No, but because they didn't bring him back, they didn't re-evolve him, which... Also, shouldn't that be possible? Like, if you can go up and down so quickly, can't you just go back?
Right, and the king retained all of his intelligence as a mushroom, but apparently if you go back into a dinosaur, you get stupid. I don't know.
Yeah, like, actually, the king would have been happier as a mushroom. After all, he wanted to be everywhere at once.
Yeah, he retained his intelligence, and he was literally everywhere at once. I mean, also he was a gross mushroom, but besides that, it seemed pretty good.
Why does Luigi not have a mustache? Like, I realize this is the most fanish thing I've asked all throughout this, but why does Luigi not have a mustache?
That also bothered me, I guess, because they wanted to really show that he was younger than Mario. I mean, John Leguizamo will. They could have been the same age, and John Leguizamo would have looked younger than Bob Hoskins. But yeah, I think it was that. But yeah, that even as a kid, especially as a kid, that always bothered me. Like more than almost anything else in the movie. It's really dumb, but Luigi has a mustache. Just give him the mustache, guys. It's not. It wouldn't change anything about the movie except for make us happier that he looked slightly more like Luigi. And less.
He's too much of a baby face in this.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's because they were basically making Mario his surrogate, father figure, and I get that. But still, you could have given him a mustache. It's not a big thing.
Imagine if Mario was Luigi's surrogate father in the games. It's so weird. Like it's breaking your brain.
Though, because at the time, like, I would say you want to talk about a good adaptation, and I haven't seen it in years. And I'm sure it's a really kind of bad kids cartoon, but I would say a good adaptation for me as a child was the Super Mario Brothers Super Show and then Super Mario World cartoons. I'm like, oh hey, look, there's Mario and Luigi. They're in the Mushroom Kingdom. They're doing things that I would expect Mario and Luigi to do. They look like the characters.
I'm gonna just say that has not held up a ton.
I'm sure not, but as a child, I thought that was Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
And I thought this wasn't Mario Brothers. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Oh, of course, yeah.
So, it wasn't a great cartoon, but at least it managed to capture the essence of that, and that still had them as plumbers in Brooklyn going over. But that was kind of my point, is that now that's just not part of the character's DNA anymore. So it's kind of hard to compare it to anything else, because they're characters that always existed in the Mushroom Kingdom, and I don't even know if they're really plumbers in the games anymore. I don't, so...
Yeah.
So you can't really compare that.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's weird.
The movie
Mario as a franchise was in a different place too.
Yeah, it was. But even still, like it's so clear that Hopper just has no idea what he's doing and is so unhappy being there in any capacity. He says Goombas, like he almost like over enunciates it as though he's like speaking another language.
He should be speaking another language. He's a freaking dinosaur, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. It's a weird movie. If it wasn't Mario Brothers, it wouldn't be a good movie, but at least it would be an interesting movie.
If it was kind of more like what it was trying to do, it would have been better. It wouldn't have been probably great, but it would have been something that this isn't.
I'll tell you this: if somebody one day wanted to take the core concepts of this script, remove the Mario Brother elements, and make a new movie based off that, I would be interested in watching it.
Yeah, and I would be interested in watching playing a Mario game that was kind of like had some
Super
of this
Mario
stuff in
Brothers,
there. Like
the
this
movie,
is
the game.
No. I'm thinking more like New Donk City, like a weird like underside of New Donk City is Dinohattan.
I would love for Dinohattan to be an actual place in a Mario game. I'm not gonna lie, that's up there.
Yeah.
Things that I want.
Yeah, it's got slides. Oh yeah, this movie has slides.
Yeah, and this was pre Mario 64, and they basically had that entire sliding down the slide thing.
Yeah. So I think I've said everything I might have to say, other than just how utterly weird and stilted this movie is. It really does feel like a movie that came in from another dimension, perhaps even the dimension of Dinohattan.
Yeah, I'll say this, guys. If you haven't seen this movie before, or if you haven't seen it in a long time like I did, I'd say it's worth checking out just to be like, what the hell's going on? It's so bizarre and interesting. It has, I was gonna say, but it is not good. So don't think it's gonna be a good movie when you go in to watch it.
Yeah, I can't really say it's important for, say, film history, but it's definitely interesting for video game history, because this really, like I said, this was the first big video game movie. It was an actual like sizable project. It took it was like $50 million, which was a lot, which is kind of peanuts now when you have like small superhero movies are like $75 million productions, but it was still a big thing, and it both its construction and its reception critically and commercially did lead to kind of a very large and perhaps ignominious history of video game movies for a long time.
I agree. So I guess that's it. We'll be back with other other movies, other TV shows, other things later. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this first iteration of our video game media thing, which hopefully by the time this comes out, I'll have thought of a name for, and it'll be on the title of this video. But anyways,
it will be.
All right, thanks guys.